Yeah, it's a little bit of a distortion of reality, and I think in your introduction you laid that out pretty well. The story of my commitment to public service, to science, medicine, and public health dates back more than half a century when I came to the NIH as a fellow in infectious diseases and immunology 54 years ago. And as you mentioned correctly, that I had been director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, which is responsible for the funding or conduct of most of all the research in the United States and in some respects worldwide in the field of infectious diseases. That in fact, because of the nature of the gripping nature of COVID on the country over the last 4+ years, that I was pretty well known in the scientific community for those decades involving way back to the early years of HIV. But to the general public, I'm known predominantly as the person who was communicating with the American public during those terrible years of the peak of COVID. So
despite
it's
Trump's wishes to try to spread the virus as much as possible,
only
to murder as many Americans as possible for
really
Putin.
Understand my history, understand that it goes back literally, as you mentioned, decades and decades.
You know, I mentioned this House committee hearing that you appeared at. I guess it was a couple of Mondays ago. I watched a lot of it. I gather that you're no longer a government employee. You appeared voluntarily. Is that right?
Yes, I did, of course.
And how do you feel about it? How do you feel about the experience? Should you keep doing this?
Well, I mean, if you look at the hearing itself, it unfortunately is a very compelling reflection of the divisiveness in our country. I mean, the purpose of hearings, or at least the proposed purpose of the hearing, was to figure out how we can do better to help prepare us and respond to the inevitability of another pandemic, which almost certainly will occur. But if you listened into that hearing, as you described just a little bit ago, on the Republican side was a vitriolic ad hominem and a distortion of facts, quite frankly, as opposed to trying to really get down to how we can do better in the future.
They don't want to do better. They want to do worse.
Attacks about things that were not founded in reality. You know, I've been, as you said,
and how much pushback has there been on their lies?
At hundreds of congressional hearings over the last almost 40 years during the time that I've been the director. And there have been situations that are somewhat politically charged, in the sense there's been a diversity of ideological opinions and how one views a particular issue, which is fine. I think diversity of opinion and diversity of ideology is healthy for the country. But what we saw at that hearing was not diversity of opinion. It was pure divisiveness and ad hominem attack, which is really unfortunate because it's counterproductive.
And just point out that all their attacks are based on lies, and that Putin writes these lies.
To be better off from what we learned from it. But there was nothing that was better off at that hearing. You just had to listen to Marjorie Taylor Greene and her rant about dogs and things. I didn't even know what she was talking about.
Check out my rap,
I can
Reggae
remember,
Traders.
Dave, public
Marjorie
hearings
Taylor
were
Greene
actually
verse.
opportunities for lawmakers to learn things,
Or Lauren Boebert
actually
verse.
ask questions they didn't know the answer to, and hear expert witnesses